My name is Charlotte, and I'm 35. On the day I officially adopted Leo and Maya, taking them from the foster care system, I never imagined that I would hear words from my own mother that would leave such a deep scar. "We're just more attached to Jessica's kids. After all, they are our biological grandchildren." These words were spoken 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, when we were discussing guest arrangements over the phone. It turned out that my sister's children would be given the guest rooms, while my children would get inflatable mattresses in the basement storage room. In that very moment, something irrevocably broke. For all of us. I'd love to know what corner of the world you're watching this video from, so please write about it in the comments. And if this feeling is familiar to you, when you have to become a wall to shield your family from injustice, let me know by hitting like, and don't forget to subscribe. My childhood was spent in one of those respectable, tree-lined suburbs of Connecticut where every house had a perfect lawn. I grew up there with my younger sister, Jessica. Our home was the true embodiment of the American dream, a large colonial-style mansion with a huge backyard that served as the unofficial gathering spot for all the children on our street. My parents, Helen and William Davis, were pillars of our small community. Their names were known and respected by everyone. My father was an incredibly successful lawyer at one of New York's most prestigious firms. My mother was the quintessential lawyer's wife, the soul of every school fair and the hostess of those very dinner parties that all the neighbors talked about for weeks. From the earliest years, an unspoken competition hung in the air between Jessica and me. It was fueled by our parents, their barely perceptible yet constant preference for their younger daughter. Jessica was only 2 years younger, but everything in life seemed to come effortlessly to her. She excelled in sports, was a straight-A student, and possessed that rare charisma that drew people to her wherever she went. I remember the pride shining on my parents' faces at her soccer games. I remember their enthusiastic applause at every ceremony where she received another academic award. With me, everything was different. Academics were a real struggle from the start. Words seemed to live a life of their own on the pages of books, and the numbers in my notebooks just wouldn't form a coherent picture. I had to put in twice the effort to achieve the same results as my peers. When I was in 3rd grade, specialists finally gave my difficulties a name: dyslexia and ADHD. This explained a lot, but it didn't make my life easier. For my parents, these diagnoses were not a key to understanding, but a problem that needed to be hidden. They saw my differences not just as an alternate way of thinking, but as something undesirable that could damage the image of our perfect family. The question, "Why can't you be like your sister?" became a constant refrain in our house. It came in different variations: Jessica doesn't need a tutor to do her homework, or Jessica never forgets to hand in her assignments on time. Each comparison gradually chipped away at my self-confidence. Individually, they were minor, but together, they left a deep mark. But despite these challenges, it was in high school that I found my true calling. I volunteered for the Big Brother Big Sister Reading Buddy program, helping elementary school students. And the moment I sat next to a child who, like me once, struggled with letters, something changed. Beneath their frustration and irritation, I saw enormous potential. And I intuitively knew the right words to use to support them, because I had gone through it myself. This experience defined my future path. I went to college, firmly knowing that I wanted to dedicate my life to working with children who had their own special learning difficulties. After graduating, I found my place. I became a special education teacher in a Brooklyn school with children from various ethnic backgrounds. The job was incredibly demanding, but it brought a deep sense of satisfaction that I had never experienced before. I interacted extensively with families from entirely different worlds and over time became deeply interested in the foster care system, especially after several of my students went through it. The more I read about the children waiting for their forever home, the clearer I understood that my heart was open to becoming an adoptive mother to one of them someday. Meanwhile, Jessica followed the well-trodden path. Like our father, she chose law, married her college boyfriend, Mark, whose family was even wealthier than ours, and settled in an exemplary suburb next to our parents. Their wedding was the event of the year, one our parents spoke of breathlessly for a long time. And when, 2 years later, Jessica announced she was pregnant, my mother couldn't hold back her tears. She literally wept with joy at the mere thought of soon becoming a grandmother. By age 30, I was completely absorbed in my work and volunteering. I became a court-appointed special advocate, CASA, for children in foster care, and this work occupied all my free time. My personal life took a back seat. My passion for helping vulnerable children was stronger. When I shared my thoughts about becoming a foster parent myself with my family, their reaction was telling. My father frowned. "Charlotte, maybe you should think about getting married first?" My mother, as always, was more direct. "Darling, but what about your own children? Don't you want them?" That comment deeply upset me. In it, I heard her perspective: adopted children are not quite real family. But their opinion didn't stop me. I started the certification process, attending parenting classes, undergoing the necessary background checks, and preparing my modest but cozy home for a child. My parents watched all of this with skepticism. In their eyes, my choice was just further confirmation that I was going down the wrong path, once again failing to meet their expectations. Leo was the first to enter my life. He was a mature for his age 6-year-old boy with big brown eyes that, despite everything, still held trust. And he absolutely adored toy cars. His history was difficult. His biological mother's parental rights were terminated due to serious personal issues, and in 2 years, he had been through 3 different foster families. He was significantly behind in school, viewed all adults warily, and woke up from nightmares almost every night. But beneath the armor built from childhood trauma was an incredibly curious and affectionate child. He opened up like a flower the moment he felt consistent care and attention. I was his foster mother for 2 years. When it became clear that a return to his biological family was impossible, I immediately began the process for his official adoption. Maya came into our lives 8 months after Leo. She was a tiny 4-year-old girl with a mass of unruly blonde curls. Her huge blue eyes held a sense of apprehension. She barely spoke and flinched at any loud noise or sudden movement. Her case file was full of dry formulations that concealed a history of neglect in her birth home. I remember the evening she first fell asleep in my arms, small and vulnerable, pressed trustingly against me. In that moment, I swore to myself that I would do everything to protect her. Last year, her adoption was officially finalized. It was one of the happiest days of my life, the day we finally became a real, complete family. My children, Leo and Maya, naturally had their own difficulties related to their past. Leo lacked confidence in class and struggled to build trusting relationships. Maya had challenges with sensory processing and a slight speech delay. But beneath these difficulties were incredibly strong, loving, and brave little people. Watching their emotional wounds heal, seeing them grow and blossom, was the greatest honor of my life. My sister Jessica's life, and that of her husband Mark, was the complete opposite. They had 2 daughters, Emma, 12, and Chloe, 9. They were beautiful and healthy girls who grew up knowing nothing of need or uncertainty about tomorrow. They attended a prestigious private school, took ballroom dancing lessons, and spent every summer at exclusive, closed-off camps. Their house was so perfect that its photo was featured in a glossy design magazine, complete with a huge backyard pool and a playground designed by a professional architect. Outwardly, our 2 families couldn't have been more different. And unfortunately, these differences would soon become the cause of a deep family rift. This destructive pattern of preferring Jessica's children started almost imperceptibly, but it grew more obvious with each passing year. The first warning sign was Christmas, which occurred shortly after Leo's adoption. While opening gifts under my parents' tree, I couldn't help but notice the blatant inequality. Emma and Chloe were buried in boxes of expensive electronics, trendy designer clothes, and the latest toys from TV commercials. The gifts for Leo, while nice, were clearly chosen using a different principle. They were cheaper and seemed like last-minute purchases, lacking any personal touch. When I delicately tried to discuss this with my mother, she simply brushed it off. "Well, darling, we've known Emma and Chloe since they were born. We'll catch up in time, don't worry." but that in time never came. As time passed, the gulf in their treatment of the grandchildren only widened. My parents' house gradually turned into a true shrine dedicated to Emma and Chloe. The walls were covered with their professional photos of all ages and styles, framed school portraits, pictures from ballroom dancing competitions, and artfully captured candid shots from family vacations. And my children? The only photo of Leo, the one I gave them, stood modestly on a side table in the rarely used guest room. And when, after Maya's adoption, I brought them a beautiful studio portrait of both my children, it never found a place on the wall. It simply disappeared somewhere deep within their house. My parents' social media was a digital reflection of the same injustice. They enthusiastically liked and commented on every post Jessica and Mark made about their daughters. The feed was filled with headlines like, "Incredibly proud of our clever Emma, who won the spelling bee," or "Our Chloe takes after Grandpa, so artistic on stage." But when Leo received a school certificate for courage, for overcoming his reading difficulties, the response was silence. And when Maya, after many months of working with a speech therapist, finally spoke her first complete sentence, a genuine miracle that brought tears to my eyes, my mother's reaction in the messenger was dry and formal. "Very nice, dear." The children, with their acute sense of fairness, started to notice too. One day, during another family dinner, Chloe was showing off her trophy for winning a dance competition, basking in her grandparents' praise. Later that evening, Leo quietly approached me and asked if I could bring his school certificate next time. "Do you think," he asked, a hopeful note in his voice, "Grandma and Grandpa will hang it on their bulletin board, just like Chloe's trophy?" That simple question, full of a child's faith, squeezed my heart. The day Maya officially became my daughter passed completely unnoticed by my parents. Not a call, not a message. Yet, in the same month, it was Emma's birthday, and that event turned into a celebration of almost royal proportions. My mother spent weeks planning a grandiose party at their country club, from a custom-made tiered cake to hiring a professional photographer. When I called them to invite them to our small family party celebrating Maya's adoption anniversary, my mother coldly informed me that they already had plans. That evening, I saw fresh photos of them at the golf course on her Facebook feed. I made several attempts to talk to her about it, choosing the gentlest possible wording. One day, while having coffee, I decided to take the plunge. "Mom, is it just me, or are you and Dad paying much more attention to Emma and Chloe than to Leo and Maya? The children feel it, and it really upsets them." She looked at me with genuine, almost theatrical astonishment. "What are you talking about, dear? We treat all our grandchildren absolutely the same." "Are you sure? When was the last time you went to a school event for Leo? Or asked Maya about her drawings, which she's so proud of? You've never once offered to babysit them for an hour, even though Emma and Chloe sleep over all the time." My mother's expression turned serious. "Well, Charlotte, you have to understand, Jessica's children are more familiar to us. We've known them since birth. Your situation is a little different." "What do you mean, different, Mom? Is it because they're adopted? You chose your own special path. You can't expect everyone to immediately adjust to it." The conversation ended there. No resolution, just a feeling of something unsaid hanging in the air. Jessica seemed not to notice the problem at all, or pretended not to. When I tried to talk to her, she just waved away my concerns. "Mom and Dad are just from a different generation, Charlotte. Calm down, give them time to adjust." Of course, it was easy for her to advise me to be patient. After all, it wasn't her children being affected. But Mark, Jessica's husband, was a different story entirely. I often caught fleeting but self-satisfied smirks on his face when my mother, Helen, gave all her attention to their daughters. One time, at a family gathering, I accidentally overheard him telling his friend, "Well, it's natural that Helen and William are more attached to ours. You know, their own blood." That conversation was a revelation. He didn't just know about my parents' unfair treatment. He considered it right and actively encouraged it. The turning point happened during our annual summer gathering at my parents' lake house. It was a warm July day. The children were playing near the water, and the adults were relaxing on the porch. Leo enthusiastically put on his new snorkeling mask. He was eager to show Grandpa how he had learned to dive. But my father, William, was too busy. He was teaching Chloe to fish from the pier. He just told Leo, "Later, buddy, okay?" But that later never came. After a while, Leo went inside for juice and accidentally overheard my mother, Helen, talking to her sister. "With Emma and Chloe, we just have a different connection," she was saying. "We've known them since birth. Charlotte's children, they are sweet, of course, but it's just not the same. You understand, don't you?" Leo remained silent until the evening. It wasn't until we were driving home that he broke the silence. His voice was barely a whisper when he asked, "Mom, is it true that Grandma and Grandpa love Maya and me less because we're not their own? Because we're not real?" His question took my breath away. I pulled over to the side of the road because tears were welling up, and I couldn't drive. I pulled him close and hugged him tightly, assuring him that he and his sister were the most real and loved children. But deep down, I felt my own heart clench hard. The ease with which my mother questioned my children's place in the family, the carelessness of her words, all of it not only triggered a powerful urge to protect them. It also touched my own old childhood anxieties. That very feeling that I had never met their expectations. Maya, who was always keenly sensitive to any change in mood, began to withdraw around my parents. At family gatherings, she became very quiet, sticking close to me and avoiding interaction with her grandparents. My usually cheerful and curious daughter barely spoke a word in their presence. One evening, after another difficult dinner, she looked up at me with her big, serious eyes and quietly asked, "Mom, are Emma and Chloe better than us?" That question broke my heart. On one hand, I wanted my children to have grandparents, to feel part of a big family. On the other, I realized that every interaction deeply upset them. I remembered that feeling all too well. The feeling that you were always second best, always in the shadow, in my case, in Jessica's shadow. And now, history was repeating itself. Right before my eyes, my own children were receiving the same message I once did, that they were different, that they deserved less attention. And I knew I had to do something about it. The call came, right on schedule, 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. It was my mother, with her annual discussion of holiday plans. Thanksgiving at my parents' house was always a massive event, with relatives coming from across the country. This year was no exception. My aunt, uncle, and cousins from Atlanta were expected. "So, let's sort out the guest arrangements," she began in her businesslike tone, as if arranging seating for a corporate dinner. "Your aunt and uncle, of course, in the large guest room. Emma can use the fold-out couch in the study, and we'll prepare the small guest room for Chloe. Jessica and Mark will take the basement apartment." I paused, giving her a chance to notice the gap in her plan. The silence dragged on. Finally, I asked, "Where will Leo and Maya sleep?" "Oh, yes," her voice held genuine surprise, as if the thought truly hadn't occurred to her. "Well, I suppose we can put inflatable mattresses for them in the basement storage room. Not the best option, of course, but it's only for a couple of nights." Such blatant disregard was the last straw. I couldn't let it pass. "Mom, am I understanding this correctly? Emma gets a private study, Chloe gets a guest bedroom, and my children will sleep on the floor in a closet?" "Charlotte, don't start," she sighed wearily. "Emma is a young adult, she needs her personal space. Chloe has trouble sleeping in new places, she needs a real bed. And your children will be perfectly fine downstairs. Don't complicate things." "But my children have needs too," I replied, struggling to keep my voice even. "Maya also has nightmares when she sleeps in a new place. And Leo needs a consistent sleep routine for his medication to work properly." All I got in response was an irritated sigh. "You know, Charlotte, you're making things difficult," she snapped. "Let's be honest. We're just more attached to Jessica's children. They are our biological grandchildren." Her words dropped into the silence like stones. "That simple, careless phrase was so incredibly hurtful that for a moment, I forgot how to breathe. There was silence. It seemed even she realized what she had just said. I didn't mean that, she started to backtrack. It's just, we have a different relationship with them, we've known them since birth. But it was too late. I had heard what she really meant. The very truth I had felt but was afraid to acknowledge all these years. Hearing it spoken so plainly and directly was both devastating and, strangely, liberating. Everything fell into place. I ended the call because I felt like I was about to cry. Alone in the silence of my kitchen, I couldn't hold back the tears. It was grief not only for my children but also for the little girl I once was, who had spent her life hearing the same message. That uncomfortable feeling that we were different. That we would always be second best. That only blood ties mattered in this family. The full weight of this realization crashed down on me all at once. Leo and Maya found me exactly in that state when they returned from after-school care. I was sitting with my head resting on the table, tears streaming down my cheeks. I tried to quickly wipe them away, to pretend everything was fine, but Leo, my sensitive and perceptive boy, immediately understood. "Mom, what happened?" he asked. I stammered, trying to find the right words. I wanted to shield them from this pain, but I couldn't lie. "I had a difficult conversation with Grandma about Thanksgiving," I finally said. "Sometimes adults disagree, and it upset me a little." Maya immediately climbed onto my lap and started gently petting my face with her tiny hand. "Don't cry, Mommy." Leo stood for a moment, then straightened his shoulders and asked with an unusual seriousness for his age, "Is it about us? Did Grandma say something about us being adopted again?" His question caught me off guard. "What do you mean, again?" I asked, feeling deeply uneasy at the thought that I might have missed something. Leo exchanged a quick, grown-up glance with his sister. "We know Grandma and Grandpa love Emma and Chloe more. Their gifts are always better, and their pictures are on the walls, not ours. And also they sometimes whisper about them being our biological grandchildren when they think no one can hear." In that moment, my heart ached. The realization that my children had been carrying this pain within them all this time was overwhelming. While I tried so hard to protect them from such things, they saw and understood everything. My mother's reaction was predictable. Late that evening, a message arrived, "I'm sorry if my words upset you. I was just being honest about how we feel. I hope you'll understand. These things take time." It was not an apology. It was merely an attempt to smooth over an awkward moment without solving the problem, shifting the responsibility onto time. The next day, my father called. His voice was sharp, immediately adopting a defensive stance. "Your mother is very upset by your reaction. She just misspoke, and you, as always, are making a mountain out of a molehill. You always take everything so personally." Even Jessica called, trying to play the peacemaker. "Just let it go, for the sake of family peace," she advised. It was a painfully familiar script, one that had played out my whole life. Everyone expected me to silently accept the injustice for the sake of fragile family harmony. But this time it was different. This wasn't about me anymore. It was about my children. About their absolute right to equal treatment and love. I booked an urgent consultation with my psychotherapist. She listened and confirmed all my fears, helping me explore my options. "Your parents' behavior is not accidental, it's a clear system of preference," she said. "And numerous studies confirm that this attitude is harmful to children, even if adults think they're being discreet. The fact that your children already understand means the negative impact is already happening." I discussed the situation with my closest friends. The conversation with Megan was particularly valuable. Like me, she was an adoptive mother and had, unfortunately, faced similar difficulties from relatives. "Only one thing will help here, clear boundaries," she said. "Understand, your children are watching you now. They are learning how to react to this attitude. If you accept it, they will conclude that it's normal. That they deserve to be second best." Her words spurred me to look deeper into the issue. I spent the next few days reading everything I could find about the impact of unequal treatment from grandparents, especially in families with adopted children. The research findings were serious and only confirmed my concerns. Statistics showed that children who feel like the less loved grandchildren are more likely to experience sadness and anxiety, have lower self-esteem, and exhibit behavioral difficulties. And for adopted children, who often struggle with feelings of insecurity, this kind of treatment from close relatives can be particularly harmful. It only reinforces their internal feeling that they are somehow different and must earn their place in the family. Against this backdrop, I noticed how much Leo had changed. He became a true protector of Maya, trying to shield her from any careless word. He started asking direct questions about the upcoming Thanksgiving, and I could see how worried he was. "Mom, do we have to go there?" he asked one day. "Maybe we can just have our own celebration? Just the three of us?" Maya reacted more quietly, but no less profoundly. Some of the past difficulties we thought we had overcome returned. Her sleep became restless again. And several times, looking up at me with her huge eyes, she asked if I would give her back, like her first mother. Hearing such questions was heartbreaking. My sweet, gentle daughter, who had come so far to feel safe again. And now she was doubting whether our house was her home forever. All because of my own parents' attitude. Time was running out, and Thanksgiving was less than 2 weeks away. I had to decide what to do. I ran several scenarios through my head, each with its pros and cons. Option 1 was to go, as planned, and use the family gathering to openly raise the issue of unequal treatment. Perhaps this would provoke the conversation our family desperately needed. But at what cost? I risked creating a public scene that could frighten and upset the children even more. Did I want them to witness an unpleasant and likely very emotional argument between adults? Option 2 was to go and keep silent. Again. To pretend that nothing was happening for the sake of peace, as I had done countless times before. But what lesson would I then be teaching Leo and Maya? That they should silently endure being treated worse than others? That their feelings and pain were less important than the peace and convenience of other adults? Option 3 was the simplest: cancel the trip, citing other plans. This would avoid a difficult conversation for the moment. But it would only be a temporary solution, and sooner or later, that conversation would still have to happen. Furthermore, in this case, we wouldn't see our relatives from Atlanta, who had always been kind and genuinely happy to see us. And finally, there was option 4, create our own alternative tradition. Organize something meaningful and positive that would allow us to celebrate the day in a way that was right for our small family, whose core values are love and acceptance. Making this decision was incredibly difficult. On one hand, I understood how important it was for my children to have a connection with their extended family. But on the other, I was their mother, and my primary duty was to protect them. To shield them from the feeling of being less valued, which was evident in my parents' words and actions. To make an informed decision, I booked a consultation with Dr. Evelyn Reed, a child psychologist who specialized in the adaptation of adopted children. Her advice was clear and straightforward. Your first priority, Charlotte, is your children's emotional well-being. If your parents are unwilling to treat all grandchildren equally, your decision to limit contact with them is completely justified. Children are very perceptive to this kind of treatment, even if adults think they are hiding everything. The impact of such behavior on children is undeniable. She also gave me some practical advice that could help my children. Create your own warm family rituals, she said. Find opportunities to connect with other families who have also adopted children. Gather a village of adults around you who will genuinely love and value your children. And most importantly, be an example for them. Show them how to calmly and confidently set personal boundaries when someone treats them without due respect. Her last piece of advice resonated with me particularly strongly. I suddenly remembered my whole life. I remembered always accepting my parents' unequal treatment. How I hid my disappointment when all the praise went to Jessica, and all I got was another dose of criticism. How I forced myself to smile at family celebrations where her successes were honored, and mine were ignored. All my life, in an effort to be a good daughter, I had taught myself that my feelings and needs were secondary. And then the thought struck me, was I now teaching my own children the same wrong lesson? This thought was like a flash of light in a dark room. Everything fell into place. I had put so much effort into helping Leo and Maya find self-confidence and feel secure. How could I then take them to a place where they were being told, directly, that they were inferior to their cousins? To a place where the people who should have loved them, no matter what, had already decided for themselves that they were not real? In that instant, I made my final decision. We are not going to Thanksgiving at my parents' house. Instead, we will host our own celebration. A celebration dedicated to gratitude for the family we created for ourselves. I immediately picked up the phone. I called Megan and her adopted son. I called our neighbor Marcus, a widower who had always been so kind to my children. I called my colleague Sophia, whose family lived in another country. All of them, without hesitation, joyfully agreed to come to our chosen family Thanksgiving. When our alternative plan was set, I called my mother to inform her of our decision. I deliberately waited until the children were at school so that this undoubtedly serious conversation would happen without witnesses. Mom, I'm calling about Thanksgiving. I've thought a lot about it, and the children and I have decided we won't be coming this year. A long pause hung on the other end of the line. What do you mean, won't be coming? She finally said. It's Thanksgiving. We're family. Yes, we are family, I calmly agreed. But everything that has happened recently has made it clear to me that my children are not considered an equal part of that family. And I no longer want them to be put in that situation. I don't understand, Charlotte, she muttered. You're exaggerating the importance of one careless word that I've already apologized for. It wasn't one word, Mom. It's been evident for a long time. From the photos on your walls to the gifts under the tree, and the way you talk about them. They notice everything. They know that you consider Emma and Chloe your real grandchildren. Can you imagine how upsetting that is for them to realize? My mother changed tactics. So, because of your feelings, you're willing to deny the children a family holiday? Don't you think that's unfair to them? Her words were unpleasant, but I didn't back down. I'm not denying them a holiday. I'm protecting them from the feeling of being uncomfortable at that holiday. We will spend Thanksgiving with our friends who love and value all of us equally. Then she tried a different approach. Your father will be very upset. And Jessica's daughters were so looking forward to playing with their cousins. I'm sorry it's come to this. Perhaps you can explain to them that for a family to be united, it's important that all grandchildren feel equally loved. When she realized that didn't work either, her tone changed. You've always been willful, Charlotte. Always wanted everything your way. And now you're creating difficulties for the family because you don't want to understand a simple thing. Biological family is one thing, and adopted is another. Relationships can be different, but they shouldn't be unequal, I replied, trying to keep my voice from trembling with frustration. My children deserve just as much attention and respect as Jessica's children. And until you are ready to give them that, we need to take a step back. The conversation ended there. In the end, my mother only said that I was doing the wrong thing and that one day I would realize how mistaken I was for turning away from the family. Soon after, my father called. His tone was stern and clearly disapproving, but I did not back down from my decision. The point wasn't to punish anyone or make a scene. All I wanted was to shield two small, vulnerable children from further distress. They had already endured too much in their short lives. Thanksgiving morning was clear and frosty in the New England style, a perfect autumn day. Our house was filled with cheerful activity. The children were thrilled about our special holiday, helping me with the turkey and setting out the place cards for the guests, which they had colored themselves the day before. We were creating our own little rituals, the main one being the gratitude tree, on whose branches everyone hung a note with what they were thankful for this year. But this atmosphere was constantly interrupted by messages from my family. Messages from my mother came one after another, her tone shifting from distressed, "How can you do this? to pleading, please reconsider, it won't be the same without you. Then Jessica texted, blaming me for ruining everyone's holiday and making Mom so upset. I responded to each message, briefly and politely, repeating that our decision was final and refusing to be drawn into an argument. Around noon, as Maya and I were preparing the turkey stuffing, she was meticulously tearing up bread pieces. There was a knock at the door. I froze in surprise upon opening it. Jessica stood on the threshold. She looked serious and a little confused. "We need to talk," she said, and walked into the house without waiting for an answer. "Aunt Jessica!" Leo shouted and rushed into her arms. Despite all our adult disagreements, the children adored her. "Hello, champ," Jessica replied, hugging him, but her gaze was fixed on me. "Leo, could you and Maya play in your room for a bit? I need to talk to your mom." As soon as the children left, Jessica's expression changed. "Why are you doing this, Charlotte? Mom is really worried." I invited her into the kitchen, continuing with the cooking. "It's not something, Jessica. It's my stand. Mom said she treats your daughters differently than mine because they are her biological grandchildren. I don't want Leo and Maya to feel uncomfortable in her house." Jessica ran a hand through her hair, a gesture she had picked up from our father. "Listen, I'm sure Mom just misspoke. She didn't mean to hurt anyone." "Maybe," I replied. "But her words align well with everything else. Remember the Christmas gifts. Remember the photos on the walls, only Emma and Chloe, and none of my children. All the attention is always on them, while Leo and Maya are practically invisible. They're old enough, Jessica. They understand." Jessica clearly looked uncomfortable. "If I'm honest, I've noticed some of it," she admitted quietly. "But I thought I shouldn't interfere." "Shouldn't interfere?" I couldn't hide my surprise. "These are your niece and nephew, who are being treated with less attention than your own daughters. How would you feel if someone treated Emma and Chloe like that?" "I'd be very upset," she admitted, looking down. "I guess I kept quiet because it was easier. For me and for my children. I'm sorry, Charlotte. I should have said something." Her confession was a complete surprise. I expected anything but such candor. "And that's not all you should know," she continued, clearly uneasy. "Mark, you could say, supports this. He likes that our girls are Mom and Dad's favorites. He himself has made comments about them being the real grandchildren, that they'll get all the inheritance because blood is thicker than water." I asked him to stop, but apparently, I wasn't persistent enough. Hearing confirmation of what I had long suspected was painful, but at the same time, it clarified everything. The problem wasn't just my parents. The problem was this entire family system that reinforced their attitude. Before I could reply, my phone rang. Mom flashed on the screen. Jessica saw it and nodded, as if to say, "Answer it." "Charlotte." My mother's voice was tight like a string. "We've discussed everything. Since you're not coming to us, we'll come to you. We're bringing Thanksgiving dinner to your house." "What?" "No, Mom, that's not the point. We already have plans, we'll have guests." "Don't be silly. We're family. We'll be there in an hour. I've already packed all the salads in the car." "Mom, please don't," I clearly said. But she had already hung up. I slowly lowered the phone and turned to Jessica. A guilty expression was on her face. "You knew?" She nodded. "They decided this last night after your call. I tried to talk them out of it, I really did. But you know Mom, once she gets something into her head." Rage boiled inside me at such blatant disrespect. "Yes, I know. And that's the whole problem, Jessica. No one in this family respects my decisions. No one respects my personal life. And now you're all planning to show up at my house, ruin the celebration I organized for my children, all because Mom can't hear the word no?" Jessica, at least, had the decency to look ashamed. "You're right," she said. I'll call her right now and tell them not to come. But it was too late. Less than an hour later, the doorbell rang again. My whole family was standing on the doorstep, my parents, Jessica, who had apparently gone to pick up Mark, and their daughters, Emma and Chloe. My mother, Helen, swept past me without acknowledging me, her hands full of serving dishes. "Happy Thanksgiving, darling," she sang out cheerily, as if we hadn't spoken on the phone half an hour ago. "I brought everything proper. Your father is bringing the turkey." I stood rooted in my own doorway, stunned by the invasion. William followed with a huge roasting dish, and behind him, Jessica with her family. Mark gave me his signature condescending smile and, as he walked past, quietly muttered something about the modesty of my decor. My friends were due to arrive any minute. The noise drew Leo and Maya, who came downstairs. A mix of curiosity and anxiety was in their eyes. Maya immediately ran and clung to my leg, while Leo froze on the stairs, watching the scene with worry. Helen was already taking charge in my kitchen, clucking her tongue at the sight of my preparations. "Oh, no, this won't do. Thank goodness I brought proper food. Your friends can stay, of course. It'll just be a little crowded now that the whole family is here." That disregard. That complete ignoring of my plans, my home, my very self, it was the final straw. The years of suppressing my frustration, putting their comfort above the truth, allowing them to treat my children like second-class citizens, it all compressed into a single moment of blinding clarity. "Please stop," I said. My voice was quiet, but in the sudden silence, it rang out clearly. "This is not happening. I made it perfectly clear that we have other plans today. I explained why we needed time away from the family. And yet, here you all are, on my doorstep, as if my words and my decisions mean nothing." Helen frowned. "Charlotte, don't make this difficult. We are family. And family should be together on Thanksgiving." "Family respects each other," I countered, looking her directly in the eye. "Family treats everyone equally. Family does not decide which grandchildren to value more and which less." "You're going on about this again," my mother sighed. "I already apologized." "No, you didn't apologize," I calmly corrected her. "You said you were sorry that I was upset. You tried to explain your actions. You called my reaction exaggerated. But you have never once acknowledged how hurtful your words were and what truth they revealed." At that moment, my friends started arriving. They paused at the doorway, instantly sensing the awkwardness in the room. Megan met my gaze and gave me an encouraging nod, letting me know she was on my side. My father, William, tried to smooth things over. He grandly gestured my friends toward the kitchen. "Come on in, put your contributions on the table," he said in a tone that suggested this was his house and his party. The living room was filling up, and the atmosphere grew increasingly uncomfortable. Mark added fuel to the fire, loudly whispering a comparison between my modest offerings and the real feast Helen usually hosts. I felt Leo move closer to me, as if trying to shield Maya, who was hiding behind my back. "On holidays, the real family should be together," Helen declared loudly, for the whole room to hear. This remark, full of veiled accusation, became the final drop. Something inside me, which I had held back so long and so hard, finally broke free. My voice was surprisingly steady and clear, seemingly surprising even myself. "I want to make one thing absolutely clear," I said, addressing everyone present. "These children, Leo and Maya, are my real family. They are living people with real feelings, and they deserve the most genuine respect and love. But for 3 years, they have been forced to watch their cousins be treated completely differently. I decided to be silent no longer, and to stop pretending nothing was happening. Emma and Chloe get expensive gifts for Christmas, while Leo and Maya get what's left over. Your walls are covered with photos of Emma and Chloe, while my children's pictures are gathering dust in a drawer. You go to every one of their ballroom dancing performances, but you've never once come to Leo's science fair or Maya's art exhibition. You arrange special days with Grandma and Grandpa for Emma and Chloe, but you've never offered to simply spend time with my children." And yes, I looked directly at my mother, You openly said that you love them more because they are your real grandchildren. After my words, there was a complete silence in the room. Jessica stared at the floor. Mark suddenly became deeply interested in examining his fingernails. My father, William, shifted uncomfortably. My mother's face flushed, whether from annoyance or embarrassment, I couldn't tell. I have spent my entire life accepting being treated differently in this family, I continued. I was never good enough compared to Jessica. Not smart enough, not popular enough, not successful enough. And now you are applying those same impossible expectations to my children. With the added complication that the very fact of their adoption somehow makes them less full members of this family. Well, I can't accept this anymore. Not for myself. And especially not for them. I took a deep breath, gathering strength for the final step. If you are unable to treat all your grandchildren with equal love, attention, and respect, then I ask you to leave. Right now. My children deserve better. And I am finally ready to do everything to ensure they receive that best. The silence that hung in the room was broken by a tiny voice from the staircase. Mommy? It was Maya. Her face was pale, but determined. She slowly descended the stairs, clutching a drawing. She walked to the center of the room, her small shoulders straightened in such a grown-up way that my heart ached again. She held up her drawing so everyone could see it. The paper showed two groups of stick figures, separated by a thick line. On one side were the names, Grandma, Grandpa, Aunt Jessica, Uncle Mark, Emma, Chloe. And on the other side, separated from them, were Mommy, Leo, and Maya. This is the real family, she said, pointing her little finger at the first group. And this is us. Her voice was quiet, but in the deafening silence of the room, it was crystal clear. Grandma told Auntie on the phone. I heard her. The impact of that simple child's drawing was immediate and crushing. I saw my mother's face contort, as if she were seeing her own reflection in the drawing. A reflection of her words, filtered through the perception of a 7-year-old child. Perhaps in that moment, for the first time, she truly understood how hurtful her actions and words had been. Oh, was all she could whisper, pressing her hand to her mouth. Oh, Maya. I didn't mean. But the truth was in her words, and we all knew it. The only difference was that now the consequences of that truth were reflected in the eyes of a child whose life was already full of challenges. Even my father, who was always my mother's first defender, looked completely disconcerted this time. He addressed Maya, "Sweetheart, that's not right. You are part of our family." But Grandma said otherwise, Maya replied with simple childlike logic. She said we're not like everyone else because we're adopted. This simple truth could not be ignored or softened. And then something amazing happened. Jessica walked over to Maya and knelt down in front of her, looking into her eyes. Maya, what Grandma said is wrong. It's completely wrong. You coming into our family is a huge joy. And I am so sorry if we ever allowed you to doubt that for a second. Mark, her husband, coughed nervously. The children are probably tired, he said, clearly trying to escape the awkwardness. It's time for us to go. But Jessica, to my astonishment, didn't even turn to him. She stood up and said firmly, "No. We're not going anywhere. This conversation needs to be finished. And Emma and Chloe need to clearly understand that Leo and Maya are their full cousins. And that unequal treatment of them is no longer acceptable. From this day forward." My mother dabbed her eyes with a napkin. It seemed, for the first time in her life, she didn't know what to say. Finally, she walked over to me, her voice quiet and uncertain. "I think we should go. You're right, we shouldn't have just shown up like this. I'm afraid of losing you. All of you." "You're not losing us, Mom," I replied gently. "But our relationship has to change. It has to become healthier. For everyone, but primarily, for the children." She nodded. In that moment, she looked older and more vulnerable than ever. "Can we talk tomorrow?" Really talk? Yes, I nodded in reply. That would be very good. My relatives silently gathered their things. William, my father, awkwardly patted Leo on the shoulder as he passed. I had never seen him do anything like that before. Jessica hugged both my children and whispered something in their ears, which made them tentatively smile for the first time that evening. Even Mark, before ushering his daughters out the door, gave me a short nod. When the door closed behind them, only my friends, my chosen family, remained in the house. They had been silent witnesses to this turning point. Megan came over and squeezed my hand. Marcus, without a word, began setting plates on the table, restoring a sense of normalcy to the house. And Sophia took the children, asking them to show her the gratitude tree they had made. That Thanksgiving dinner was unlike any before. The air was filled with laughter, genuine warmth, and the feeling that everyone here belonged and was valued exactly as they were. Leo and Maya gradually thawed. Their smiles grew wider as they realized they were surrounded by people who saw them not as adopted or not real, but simply as wonderful children. That evening, as I was tucking the children in, Leo finally voiced his main anxiety. "Are Grandma and Grandpa going to be mad at us now?" he asked. "No, sweetie, of course not," I answered, hugging him. "They're not angry. They're just learning. Learning that their view of our family needs to change. And I'm sure today helped them understand that." "Will we see them for Christmas?" Maya whispered, her voice barely audible. "We'll see, sunshine," I answered honestly, not giving false hope. "But I promise you one thing, from now on, you will only spend time with people who love and respect you unconditionally. You deserve the best treatment, and I won't let anyone treat you otherwise." The aftermath. The weeks following that Thanksgiving were calm. My parents were reserved, maintaining distance. Mom only sent a brief message, saying she was thinking a lot about the whole situation. But support came from an unexpected place. Distant relatives who heard about the conflict surprisingly took my side. My aunt called to say how proud she was that I had protected my children. And my cousin Michael wrote a very warm letter, admitting that he, too, had long seen the unfair treatment. My sister Jessica also started working on repairing the relationship. She began calling regularly and bringing her children over to play, always without Mark. During one such visit, she approached me while the children were playing in the living room. "I'd been thinking a lot since that dinner," she said guiltily. "About how I always benefited from being the favorite daughter and how I allowed it to continue because it was easier for me. Forgive me, Charlotte, for tolerating it for so long." As Christmas approached, I instinctively prepared for another possible conflict. But instead of the usual holiday tension, I received a completely unexpected message from my mother. She asked to meet, just the two of us, for coffee. We chose a quiet, cozy cafe exactly halfway between our homes. Mom looked noticeably nervous, nervously crumpling a napkin as we exchanged awkward greetings. When our coffee arrived, she took a deep, heavy breath. "I've been doing a lot of thinking and self-reflection since Thanksgiving," she began, looking into her cup. "I've actually started seeing a therapist. Your father thinks it's completely unnecessary. But I knew, something in me had to change." This admission completely stunned me. My mother had always been dismissive of therapy, seeing it as a sign of weak people who can't handle their own problems. "The honest truth is," she continued, "I carried very deep, ingrained beliefs about what family should be and what biological ties mean. And I never truly questioned them. My own parents were extremely conservative, and I just absorbed their views without thinking. When you adopted Leo and Maya, it challenged my beliefs, which made me deeply uncomfortable. Instead of figuring out what was bothering me, I simply retreated to the familiar and comfortable behavior." Reaching out, she tentatively touched my hand across the table. "I'm not trying to make excuses, Charlotte. What I did was wrong and hurtful." Seeing that drawing from Maya, realizing how my words affected a child, that was the wake-up call I desperately needed. "I want another chance," she said. "With you, with Leo, and with Maya. I want to be a real grandmother to them, if you'll allow me to at least try." what will that look like in practice? I asked, trying to sound cautious. For a start, equal treatment. Equal gifts, equal attention, an equal number of photos on our walls. I've already started rearranging some pictures at home to restore the balance. But, much more importantly, I want to truly get to know them, to value them for who they are, not focus on how they came into our lives. It was a good start, but I needed more concrete assurances. I appreciate your admission, Mom, but I need to clearly state my expectations for the future. The children will only be in places where they are fully accepted and valued. That means, no more comments about real and adopted family. No more special, preferential treatment toward Emma and Chloe. And no more excluding Leo and Maya from our family traditions or events. Mom nodded in agreement. Yes, that's fair. And if I start slipping up or making mistakes, and I will, because I'm just learning, tell me directly. Also, I need help involving Dad, Jessica, and, critically, Mark. I can't be the only one making these changes while everyone else continues as before. Your father and I have already discussed a lot. He is reluctant to admit he was wrong, you know how he is. But he has promised to try to change his behavior. Jessica fully supports me. As for Mark, Mom sighed heavily. He is the most difficult case, but Jessica made it clear to him, if he wants to maintain family peace, this requirement is non-negotiable. We spent over 2 hours at that table, sifting through years of hurt and misunderstanding. It may have been the first time Mom truly heard me. She heard her daughter, who had always felt secondary, and a mother protecting her children from that same pain. It was a tough conversation, full of sharp moments and mutual defensiveness, but the most important thing was present, a genuine hope for change. Before we parted, I made it clear that rebuilding trust would take a long time. The children and I will come to your place for Christmas Eve, but we will spend Christmas Day at home, just the 3 of us. It's crucial for us right now to maintain our own, new traditions while we work on restoring family relationships, I said. Mom agreed unconditionally, adding something that touched me deeply. I've enrolled in a special course for grandparents raising adopted grandchildren at the local community center. The first session is this week. I want to better understand this situation and learn how to behave correctly. It was a modest but very significant action that spoke more about her willingness to change than any words. In the following weeks, the first, tentative signs of change began to appear. My father called Leo directly for the first time to ask about his astronomy interest, and soon sent him an amateur telescope. In the note, he wrote that he hoped to look at the stars together someday. Mom organized one-on-one time with Maya. They went to a pottery painting studio together, and Mom listened attentively as her daughter explained her color choices. My sister Jessica was very careful to ensure her children treated their cousins equally, immediately correcting Emma when she made tactless remarks about adoption. We also started attending family therapy sessions, a difficult but necessary step to heal the deep wounds that had accumulated over the years. There were moments of painful confrontation. We spoke hurtful but true things, but at the same time, there were breakthroughs in communication, in the ability to understand each other. Of course, not everything changed instantly. There were slip-ups, and old habits occasionally resurfaced. Mark continued to be distant and cold toward Leo and Maya, though he was careful not to show open favoritism anymore. My father sometimes struggled to find genuine common ground with Leo and Maya, falling into awkward formality. But the most important difference was that these issues were now discussed openly, not hidden behind closed doors. A year later, when we gathered again for Thanksgiving at my parents' house, the changes were astonishing. The walls now displayed an equal number of photos of all 4 grandchildren. The sleeping arrangements had been revamped so that every child had their own comfortable space. Mom had even thought about the table setting, including each child's favorite holiday dishes in the menu. But most importantly, there was a genuine, unforced warmth in my parents' relationship with Leo and Maya. Mom listened intently as Maya talked about her school art project, asking questions that showed her deep, year-long interest in her granddaughter's hobbies. Father took Leo aside to show him a collection of minerals he had specially gathered, knowing about his grandson's new interest in geology. Jessica and I shared a private moment, watching our children play happily in the backyard. "They look like real cousins now, don't they?" she observed. "Not two separate groups of kids who just happen to be related." "They always were real cousins," I gently corrected her. "The difference is that the adults in their lives finally acknowledged it." Of course, the path wasn't perfectly smooth. There were small setbacks, when old habits threatened to return. Mom occasionally made tactless remarks out of habit but immediately corrected herself. Father might start comparing grandchildren before stopping himself. Mark maintained a polite but distant attitude toward my children, though he avoided overt favoritism. However, the crucial difference was that these issues were now addressed openly, not suppressed. We built a new family culture where it became completely normal to say, "That comment was out of line," or "The children need to be treated equally." Gradually, the family balance shifted toward genuine acceptance. For me personally, this year was a time of transformation. By defending my children, I healed myself. That little girl who had always felt inferior to her sister. I discovered a strength and confidence I hadn't known I had, and the ability to firmly set boundaries without feeling guilt or the need to apologize. My children blossomed in this healthier environment. Leo's anxiety significantly reduced, he became braver at school and in social interactions. Maya became more open and expressive, unafraid to take her place at family gatherings. Both children felt secure, knowing their mother would always protect them, even if it meant confronting the elders. As we sat at the holiday table, Mom announced a new tradition. "I thought we could share what we're grateful for about one person at this table," she suggested. "I'll start. I'm grateful to Charlotte for having the courage to show me that my actions did not align with my values, and for giving me a chance to be a better mother and grandmother." Her sincerity brought tears to my eyes. When it was my turn, I looked around at the faces of my family, imperfect, but trying, and felt a deep gratitude. "I am grateful for second chances," I said simply, "and for the opportunity to create a family where everyone feels truly welcome." Later, as we were getting ready to leave, Maya cautiously tugged at Grandma's sleeve. "Grandma, will you come to my school play next week? I'm playing a bird, but I have a whole 6 words." "I wouldn't miss it for the world, sweetheart," my mother replied. The genuine sincerity in her voice left me with no doubt. The path to genuine family acceptance is rarely straight or easy. It requires immense honesty, courage, and a willingness to face the most unpleasant truths. But looking at my children, who now confidently felt part of a family that sincerely welcomed them, I knew, every difficult conversation, every clearly defined boundary, every tear shed, it was all worth it. Family is not defined by biological connection, but by love, respect, and the constant choice to truly see and value every person for who they are. Sometimes, building a healthy family requires making tough decisions and standing firm in the face of resistance. But the reward, a family where everyone feels they belong equally, is worth absolutely every moment of the struggle.